So our top story this morning, the COVID inquiry. Lots of discussion about what the government did during a crisis. The picture being painted behind the scenes of Boris Johnson's handling of it is one of absolute chaos.
There's a lot to process from what you heard so far at the inquiry yesterday. The headlines are that Boris Johnson was slow to make decisions and that he had the view that COVID was nature's way of dealing with old people.
Well, the inquiry heard from the heart of Number 10's machine, the former Chief Medical Advisor, Sir Patrick Balance, Lee Kane, he was Head of Communications, and Mr Johnson's top aide, Dominic Cummings. So, as it continues today, will it be as explosive as what we heard from Dominic Cummings yesterday?
Well, we've got Pip Tomson, GB News reporter, who has been following what was said. Pip, round it up for us. What did you think?
It was incendiary. From beginning to end, it was incendiary. Today, I don't think will be as fruity with as many expletives. The former deputy.
Look, the expletives annoyed me. I was sitting watching this on Sky News yesterday, and they had some presenter sitting saying, you know, a word was used which I feel I could use here, and it was like, "We're very sorry. We apologise. You should go and hide under the couch because he's used a bad word." Oh, well, this country. I mean, there's COVID, and there's this attitude in this country to bad language. It just really despairs me. You can show every bit of sexual perversion you want on television, but you can't say certain swear words.
But I think what was interesting about that was where Cummings was using some of that language. I mean, it might be behind closed doors privately. You and I might use language that's a bit more colourful, but amongst professionals and even your boss, would you necessarily use that language in your daily messaging?
I think what it did was give a great insight into how chaotic the whole situation is when you were dealing with this massive, huge crisis that hadn't been seen before. And it was chaotic, and there was also a very toxic atmosphere. Eamon mentions all the swearing. Let's just hear a bit of it, but bleeped out.
You called ministers useless pigs, morons, in emails and WhatsApps to your professional colleagues. Do you think you contributed to a lack of effectiveness on the part of ministers and of the Cabinet?
No, I think I was reflecting a widespread view amongst competent people at the centre of power at the time about the calibre of a lot of senior people who are dealing with this crisis extremely badly.
So, dealing with this crisis extremely badly, we had a claim that Boris Johnson refused to accept the seriousness of the situation. Lockdown was delayed for far too long. They were still talking of the strategy of herd immunity. So let's have chickenpox parties to help get rid of this. And Boris Johnson was referred to as a shopping trolley because he was veering all over the place because he couldn't make a decision. Dominic Cummings said lockdown could have been avoided if test and trace had been implemented by March 2020. I mean, this went on for hours and hours. And even up to March the 23rd, the government, this is March 23rd, 2020, the government thought the peak would be at the end of May. Well, we know that that is absolutely not what happened. And also this attitude of Boris Johnson towards older people.
Right, so what was this? The allegation was that he basically thought that older people should accept their fate, take the hit to the benefit of younger people, which will offend huge numbers.
And I don't think it was just him that thought this. I think there was some other MPs that agreed. And it came from diary entries from Sir Patrick Balance, who said Boris Johnson was obsessed with older people accepting their fate and letting the young get on with life and getting the economy running. Now, we must make it clear that this is all from Dominic Cummings. We know that his relationship with Boris Johnson broke down, is still broken down. So you might say that Dominic Cummings, you know, has some big scores to settle. Boris Johnson will be giving his evidence towards the end of the year. And today, it is the turn of Helen McNamara, who was a Deputy Cabinet Secretary. And they've already produced a report on the sort of toxic problems, the unpleasant working atmosphere. Dominic Cummings was accused of being very misogynistic towards her. Let's just hear another excerpt from yesterday.
An extract from Mr. Johnson's Fight Back WhatsApp group. You say this: at 12:20. If I have to come back to Helen's PET, what's that, propriety and ethics?
Yes.
Part of the Cabinet Office, or number 10, designed to waste huge amounts of my time so I can't spend it on other stuff, I'll personally handcuff her and escort her from the building. Had you got form, Mr. Cummings, for arranging for people to be escorted from number 10 before?
You shouldn't believe everything you read in the newspapers. That story is not accurate.
I don't care how it's done, but that woman must be out of our hair. We cannot keep dealing with this horrific meltdown of the British state while dodging stilettos from that.
Well, if it wasn't so serious, it'd be highly amusing. I do think. But it's obvious then, it never ceases to amaze me that you get unelected representatives like Dominic Cummings. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he certainly wanted to be in charge, didn't he? He thought he was smarter than everybody else in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's generally agreed that there's a certain arrogance about Dominic Cummings, isn't there?
But you're absolutely right. There was this revelation yesterday that Lee Cain was finding himself writing policy because there was just no policy coming forward from those who actually were elected officials. I mean, that's an extraordinary revelation. And also the lack of remorse from Dominic Cummings in relation to Barnard Castle. He was asked a number of times, do you accept that the public lost faith in the government's regulations as a result of that? And he just batted it off.
Yeah, and it was quite a testy exchange between Dominic Cummings and Hugo Keith QC, and he was repeatedly asked, why did you take your wife and child in the car to test your eyesight? Eventually he said, well, I didn't have to have them in the car, and he maintains that my actual actions in going north, which emerged, broke lockdown rules, but he says his actions were entirely reasonable and legal.
Okay.
It continues today.
Thank you.
Well, there was a lot for you to wade through there, Pip, and we'll speak to you every hour this morning just to get a reflection on that. And if you've got a view of anything you heard or who you think's to blame or not to blame, it's going to take a long time to find all this out. gbviews@gbnews.com. I mean, I look at this and I think, what is the point of this? What is the point? This is going to go on for how long? Next year, year after?
Well, the point, I think, is going to be a long inquiry, but the point is to learn the lessons and the mistakes and to make sure that if and when it happens again, we're in a better position. Hopefully that will, as like any inquest or anything after or an inquiry after an event.
Well, I'll tell you what, I say this to my children. Don't assume that because someone has got a title, they can actually do their job. What you will find out in life as you get older and as you progress through life is that most people are idiots. They're stupid and they're not capable of functioning and organising anything in a brewery, really. And you will find that through life. And if you want something done, do it yourself. And